go through all my content every single week. Now, by the time you get to this stage, I am essentially already through looking at all the different draft titles that PF from our team have already helped me draft up. Now, what I then do is I just go through each one, I listen to each one, and then I try to come up with better questions and try to figure out, hey, how would someone look at this video and say, hey, what question does this answer? Because the most important part for me is figuring out what are the common questions that this podcast answers. Because my ultimate goal at the end of all these podcast episodes is to figure out how do I show up in ChatGPT search in the future. That's the most important part. And this is a podcast episode I'm releasing tomorrow with Stella Hahn, who is the co-founder of Fractional. Really, really interesting episode because we talked about exactly how does an investment club work. And this is so interesting because you can kind of pull together your capital, but you don't actually form the LLC until you all decide, like, hey, this is a deal that we want to fund or do together. Interesting. Okay. What happens if you want out with an investment club early? Boom. That's such a good one. That's a good one in itself. All right, let's take a look at the next one. What else is set up? Don't worry about your ID verification. Okay, so fractional handles the hard work for you. Okay. How does fractional make raising capital easier for investors? Boom. Good enough. Why is affordable so hard? So this is a question that I ask everybody on the podcast. Great. So now that I've gotten all these podcasts set up, I kind of tell, okay, all the titles for our reels are all set. Great. So now I can tell Pia on my team that all the titles here are all set. Now, what she'll then do afterwards is she's gonna go and figure out like how to come up with the video descriptions for each and every single podcast and each and every single video description so that she can figure out what to do. Now you can kind of see that she's already come up with the different options for thumbnail text and how to even create their own thumbnail. And she has come up with the video descriptions, common questions, video answers. So this is the most important part that I believe is so important in the world of GEO, in the world of ChatGPT optimization. Now, if someone ever asks, like, hey, what is an investment club in real estate and how does it work, right? I would want my podcast with Stella to be referenced in a future podcast episode. I mean, a future question on ChatGPT. Whenever I say, hey, what is an investment club in real estate and how does it work? And is there a podcast that talks about this? That's where I would want my podcast to show up as a reference point because it's so important for your content to be referenced so that you can be easily indexable, identifiable by ChatGPT. Because in the future, guess what? People are just going to ask ChatGPT questions. That's really what they're going to do. They're not going to go look for a podcast that answers first. They're probably going to go to ChatGPT first. So if you don't have a megaphone on yourself and tell ChatGPT, like, hey, I have the answer over here and be cited as a source, oh, you're going to be invisible. So please, please don't sleep on this. I'm sharing this to you today because you're gonna see my entire process, right? You're just watching me work. All I'm doing is showing with you, hey, how do I edit the content from my podcast that I recorded with Stella? How do I cut the clips up? How do I modify and engineer the content and the video description and all the text to show up in ChatGPT, right? You might have heard of search engine optimization in the past, but you might not have heard of GEO now, right? GEO is how do you show up in ChatGPT? Because if you ask, what is the best podcast on affordable housing investments and who is it hosted by? If you ask that question, you're going to get my podcast that pops up. Boom. That's us right there. Some honorable mentions, great. And that's important. This is how you figure out how to show up in the world, because I bet if you knew that you can show up on page one of Google today, I bet you'd be working so hard to be on it, wouldn't you? I know I would. All right. I hope you all have an amazing Sunday. I just want to show you every single day, like the work I do, because it's not like super interesting sometimes, but this is just the reality of work. And this is what I do every single day, every single week to try to put out good content. But more importantly, share with you the content and share with you the journey of what I'm doing every single day. So that's what I'm doing. All right. I hope you all have an amazing day. I'll see you all tomorrow for day. Wow, I'm almost at 700 days of going live. It's wild. Have a good one, everybody.